March 1994, the Dome, North London. In spite of all the major setbacks, Mark Maurice is still going and presenting unique landmark showcase Goa trance events completely independently of either the music business or dealer hierarchies. In spite of this, there is now another major player on the scene.
What are you saying to me, that there won't be another scene, another movement, that music's dead and no one's ever going to dance again?
No, they're already dancing. They've been
Listen,
dancing
you will be
years.
fucking dancing, tripping off your face next summer, right? And I'll come up to you and I'll say, yeah, you see.
Ian St Paul is a man who has the financial muscle, access to funds and involvements with the dealership to be able to move wheels within wheels. In due course he gains the aristocratic patronage required to stage an illegal rave party on the Marquess of Bath's estate at Longleat for the benefit of the dealer hierarchy. This triggers off the great 1995 LSD craze that is to sweep the national club scene. Thus Ian St Paul and Ron Rothfield, aka Raja Ram, established themselves as two of the key spokespeople in an all-new version of the movement, completely centred around the use of high-grade pharmaceutical LSD as a dance drug substitute for ecstasy, as the street-level ideologies are rewired to give the dealer hierarchy the ultimate control of the scene. This all-new high-grade batch of LSD is distributed amongst the faithful by elements directly linked to the Junior League Kinnock social set we encountered earlier, who was still active in spite of the fact that the police could be proven to have direct knowledge of what they were up to. In due course I would be presented with evidence of a direct link between this batch of LSD and that which was deployed by the CIA as part of Operation Midnight Climax during the 1960s by the journalist Tony Marcus. Meanwhile, in the wake of the Longleat rave, the Longleat art robbery had taken place, and I was unearthing evidence of a connection. When I had enough material, I presented two different sets of police with everything that they needed to stop the dealer hierarchy in their tracks.
It's Sergeant Palmer here from Nine Elms Police Station in Battersea. I've spoken to DS Griffin today regarding your letter, and I'm very interested in Linford Studios. I've got a pager number of 0459 144 084. If you could page me, say tomorrow sometime, during the day, I will give you a ring and hopefully I'll talk about it and I'll tell you what's happening. Okay, thanks very much. Look forward to hearing from you.
In the meantime, myself and Mark had completely wiped the floor with Ian St Paul and Paul Jackson in our own version of the great Branson legalisation debate.
But on a street level, the average kid in the street is not going to get good drugs. He's not going to know what good drugs are. You can go into the supermarket and buy a cheese sandwich or a packet of biscuits, and you know what's in that cheese sandwich, you know what's in a packet of biscuits. You go and buy an E in a rave or a trip, you don't know what's in it.
Never do it, never done it in my life.
Well, that's you. The average kid in the street, that's your dance.
That's the only access that they ever get to anything.
So good drugs for all.
Yeah, good drugs for all.
I'm not I mean, the party scene ain't going to be all those average kids in the streets anyway.
It's supply of it. You
It's
can't
going to be an elite
mass
few.
produce good drugs.
That's not my idea of a party. That sounds like a fucking.
No, it's not going to be an elite few, but it's
yeah, the Gentlemen's Club of Spalding.
As the casualties started to mount up, DJ Dominic Lamb was to name his label and one of his latest tracks after some of those who were alleged to have jumped off a cliff under the direct influence of this self-same batch of LSD. Meanwhile, Raja Ram was rising to the top as the all-new face of Goa Trance, courtesy of the Ladbroke Grove dealership hierarchy and their aristocratic patrons, when not bullying Mark over the phone, that is.
Case and ring me back and speak about this, because otherwise, man, you know what you're going to be in. Severe fucking shit. So get back on that fucking phone and let's straighten this out verbally, and I mean it. Otherwise, they're going to be right on your fucking ass.
Simultaneously, Ian St Paul, emboldened by his seeming untouchability and position within the dealership hierarchy, was putting the boot in too.
You don't know me, you don't know
Well,
jack shit
you'll
about
see.
me.
Maybe you don't trip then.
Summer.
I don't need to trip.
Well, maybe you don't trip.
No, I trip,
maybe,
I don't need to trip.
Well, maybe you don't anymore. You can't take it or whatever. I don't know. You know?
Fucking Mary Whitehouse here.
Do you know what I mean? Maybe you can't. Maybe you can't cope with it. Some people can't after you've been tripping a while. You don't need to trip anymore.
It doesn't mean you can't cope with it.
Well, yeah, they can do.
But it doesn't
They
necessarily
can
mean
do
you can't
because you
cope
don't
with it.
need to because you know maybe you had a bad experience or whatever.
The overall effect of all this was to gradually whittle away at Mark's audience, undermining him from below until he had no one left. It would not be long before he was dancing virtually on his own, as the dealers hijacked the movement and the toffs croquet hammered its originator into the long grass, covering him with fermenting grass clippings as he went. This is the last event that he ever did. Deciding that it was time to redress the balance from the publicity point of view, I contacted the Daily Mirror.
Hello, Rupert. It's Graham from the Mirror. 10 o'clock now. A bit late to talk tonight. So I'll give you a call in the morning then. And we'll see what we can do tomorrow. I'll give you a call at 10 o'clock tomorrow morning. Bye-bye.
After a journey or two to Canary Wharf and a number of discussions with some key players at Mirror Group newspapers, with particular reference to the link between the Kinnock Junior League dealership and the overall Goa Trance hierarchy, I realised that I was getting absolutely nowhere, with the entire unelected political establishment busy getting behind Bambi Blair, Blue Mandy and New Labour. No one was interested in doing anything that might have the slightest chance of rocking the boat. So it was off to the Music and Style Press instead, where I was to get a better than expected reception. Perhaps Ian St Paul and Raja Ram had been rubbing others up the wrong way as well with their arrogance. Whatever the truth, it wasn't going to be long before the CIA connection was to hit the media mainstream, courtesy of myself and Tony Marcus. After initial exposés of some of Paul Oakenfold and Danny Rampling's fraudulent claims to have been involved in the scene at its outset, the opposition hit back before being completely upstaged and outed in their own previously loyal media mouthpieces. The coup de grace was the ID magazine exposé that was to hit the headlines. At last, the forces of law and order that had sat on their hands for so long were to be forced to sit up and take notice as the dealership hijacked revamping of what was originally a spiritual movement was exposed for what it was. Meanwhile in India, the CIA connection had not gone unnoticed. The bombing of a Delhi hostel in which the heir to the Longleat fortune was staying being a possible consequence of this.
So I've had gas for about 10 days before. No hot water for 2 weeks. No, 3 weeks before. It's bizarre, isn't it?
Back in Blighty, Mark was living in absolute squalor on the wrong side of Ladbroke Grove, whilst trying to retain his sense of humour.
Great, isn't it? Have you had a cup of tea?
Yeah, I'm gonna have one, then we'll go.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Have you got any muesli?
No.
What a bummer. Look at you old hippie.
I've got a gas meter with that's not connected though.
Go on, play some more.
That's all I have got.
Shortly after this film was taken, Mark effectively disappeared from the scene, leaving nothing but a few answering machine messages for posterity.
Are you there? No? It's illegal party time. Saturday night illegal party is East Grinstead, exit A264, and it's in a place called Barcombe, which is Barcombe, and it's also in a place called Boast Lane / Anchor Lane. It's got a very strange direction done a duck flyer with like the wrong directions on it. But for some people, which is bizarre. But I'll talk to you anyway because quite a lot of stuff is coming forward about this this character that died, and quite intense. And I'll tell you when I see you next. Speak to you soon.
Barkham near Lewes in Sussex is in the shadow of Plan Cameron's one-time mentor Tim Rathbone's Tory power base. In a future project, we shall look at how a local Conservative Party branch chairmanship was hijacked by a US citizen with no rights to vote and an apparent link to the murky world of alleged Central and South American CIA-supported anti-communist drug networks. The trail will lead us to an importation business tucked away on the edge of the Sussex Downs, which operated without the appropriate licences for a period of some 30 years, which had alleged links of its own to the funding of Lewis Conservatives, an apparent connection with one of the biggest drugs busts in the northeast of England, and the animal cruelty issue in the background of current Liberal Democrat MP for Lewis, Cabinet Minister Norman Baker, storming Norman, the Hurricane of Westminster, a veritable coalition cauldron of conspiracy, if ever there was one. So is there a link between Raja Ram's mid-90s LSD revival, the collapse of the banking system, the current economic malaise, Tony Blair's warmongering foreign policy, the rise of Plan Cameron at the start of the decade, and the CIA conspiracy to turn on the world? The answers are out there, truly out there,